The silent galaxy. Captain Riley Chen pressed her palm against the cool viewport of the exploration vessel Prometheus, watching the unfamiliar stars of the Zarian system grow larger. 50 years had passed since the galaxy fell silent, and this was humanity's first venture beyond their home system since the Great Silence began. The view should have filled her with wonder, but instead, an uncomfortable chill ran down her spine. The bridge was quiet, except for the gentle hum of life support systems. Her crew of 12 had been carefully selected from Earth's best scientists, engineers, and explorers. Each person aboard represented humanity's finest minds, chosen for this historic mission to discover what had happened to the countless civilizations that once filled space with chatter, trade, and the occasional conflict. Dr. Marcus Torres floated beside her, his weathered face reflecting years of studying alien archaeology from the safety of Earth's universities. At 62, he was the oldest member of the crew, but his enthusiasm for discovery rivaled that of the youngest intern. His dark eyes sparkled with anticipation as he studied the sensor readings displaying on his tablet. "The third planet is definitely our target," Torres said, his slight Spanish accent making his words flow like music. "Preliminary scans show massive artificial structures, but no energy signatures. Whatever civilization built those cities has been gone for decades." Engineer Zara Okafor looked up from her station, her nimble fingers still dancing across the control panels as she monitored the ship's systems. At 35, she had designed half the technology that kept the Prometheus running, and her innovations had made this deep space mission possible. Her Nigerian heritage showed in her strong features and confident bearing, traits that had served her well in the male-dominated engineering corps. "Captain, I'm detecting some unusual energy patterns from the planet's surface," Zara reported. "It's not active technology, but something is definitely resonating down there, like an echo of something that used to be much more powerful." Navigator James Reeves checked their approach vector one final time. The former military officer had served in Earth's defense forces during the tense years when humanity expected the galactic war to eventually reach their doorstep. When the silence came, instead of invasion, he had transitioned to exploration work, but his tactical mind never stopped analyzing potential threats. "Approach vector is clean," Captain Reeves announced. "No debris fields, no automated defenses, no warning beacons. This system is as dead as all the others we've passed through." Riley nodded, though something about his words bothered her. In 3 months of travel, they had passed through 17 star systems. Every single one showed signs of advanced civilization. Platforms, terraformed worlds, massive space stations, but not one sign of life. The silence was complete and absolute, as if someone had simply turned off the lights across half the galaxy. "Take us into orbit around Zarian 7, she ordered. "Full sensor sweep, but keep us ready for a quick departure. I don't like how quiet everything is." As the Prometheus entered orbit, the scale of what they found became clear. The planet below had once been home to a thriving civilization. Massive cities covered 3 continents, connected by transportation networks that spanned oceans. Orbital elevators reached up from the surface like fingers grasping for the stars. Everything was perfectly preserved, as if the inhabitants had simply vanished one day. Dr. Torres was practically vibrating with excitement as he studied the sensor data. "Captain, this is incredible. The architecture is unlike anything in our databases. These aren't the Kethron builders or the Altarian Empire. This is something completely different and much older. I'm reading structures that could be thousands of years old. Any signs of what happened to them?" Riley asked. Torres frowned at his readings. That's the strange part. There are no signs of warfare, no evidence of natural disasters, no indication of plague or famine. The cities just ... stopped, like everyone left at the same time and never came back. Zara had been running deep scans of the planet's energy systems. Captain, I'm detecting a massive underground complex near the northern polar region. It's built into a mountain range, and it's still drawing power from somewhere. Whatever's down there is still active. Riley felt her pulse quicken. Active technology was the first sign of ongoing civilization they had found since leaving Earth. Can you determine what kind of power source it's using? The energy signature is unlike anything I've seen before, Zara replied. It's not fusion, not antimatter, not even zero-point energy. It's something else entirely, and it's been running continuously for decades. James Reeves was studying the tactical implications. Captain, if there's active technology down there, we need to consider the possibility that we're not alone. This could be a trap, or there might be automated defenses we haven't detected yet. Riley weighed their options. Earth's government had given her broad discretion to investigate, but they had also stressed the importance of not taking unnecessary risks. Humanity had survived the Great Silence by being cautious, by avoiding the conflicts that had apparently destroyed everyone else, but they had also sent this mission to find answers. The questions that had haunted Earth for 50 years demanded investigation, even if it meant taking risks. We're going down, she decided, but we take full precautions. Minimal team, maximum protection, and we stay ready to run at the first sign of trouble. 2 hours later, Riley found herself in the cramped confines of the shuttle Hermes along with Torres, Zara, and 2 security specialists. The shuttle descended through Zarian 7's atmosphere, passing over the silent cities that stretched endlessly below. The preservation was eerily perfect. Vehicles sat in streets as if their drivers had simply stepped away. Buildings showed no signs of decay, and gardens were frozen in time as if waiting for their owners to return. The underground complex was built into a mountain that rose from the polar ice like a black spear. As they approached, massive doors began to open, revealing a hangar bay that could have accommodated ships 10 times the size of their shuttle. The doors opened automatically, Zara observed. Something knows we're here. Is that good or bad? Torres asked nervously. We're about to find out, Riley replied. The hangar was empty but well lit, with alien writing covering the walls in scripts that seemed to shift and change when viewed directly. The air was breathable but carried a strange metallic taste that made everyone's skin crawl. As they moved deeper into the complex. Guided by Torres's archaeological training and Zara's technical expertise, they found themselves in a vast chamber, filled with towering crystalline structures. Each crystal pulsed with soft light, and as they approached, images began forming in the air around them. The images told a story that chilled Riley to the bone. They showed a galaxy teeming with life, hundreds of species trading and exploring among the stars. Then came the darkness, a presence that moved from system to system, not conquering but consuming. Entire civilizations didn't fall in battle. They simply ceased to exist, their thoughts and memories absorbed into something vast and hungry. These are warning messages, Torres whispered, his voice filled with awe and terror. This whole complex is a monument to the dead, a record of what destroyed them. The images showed the final days of dozens of civilizations. The entity called it the Devourer didn't attack with weapons or armies. It sent whispers through space, thoughts that infected minds and slowly converted entire populations into extensions of itself. The victims remained conscious throughout the process, aware of what was happening but powerless to resist. "Look at this," Zara called out, pointing to one of the larger crystals. "This one is showing recent activity. The energy signatures match what we detected from orbit." The crystal showed a star map of the galaxy with thousands of systems marked in red to indicate areas consumed by the devourer. But there were other markings, 2 systems marked in blue, showing the advance of something else. The 2 forces had met in the center of the galaxy, and both had simply stopped. The Galactic War, Riley realized, it wasn't between different species. It was between the survivors and the devourer. The civilizations were fighting for their right to exist as individuals. Torres was studying the ancient texts surrounding the crystal. According to this, the war ended in a stalemate. The devourer was contained but not destroyed, trapped in a dimensional prison at the galaxy's core. The surviving civilizations used the last of their strength to build the containment field, then they died maintaining it. A new image formed, showing the final moments of the war. Massive ships from dozens of species converged on the galactic core, pouring their energy into a barrier that held back something terrible. As their power was consumed by the effort, the ships went dark one by one, their crews making the ultimate sacrifice to keep the galaxy safe. They saved us, Zara whispered. Earth was too far out to be affected, and they died to make sure we stayed safe. But Riley was studying other parts of the display, and what she saw made her blood run cold. The containment field was weakening. After 50 years of silence, the barriers that held the devourer were beginning to fail. "How long do we have?" she asked Torres. The old archaeologist consulted the alien chronometer built into the display. According to this, the containment field will collapse completely within 6 months. When it does, the devourer will be free to resume its conquest of the galaxy. The implications hit everyone at once. Earth was no longer safe. The entity that had consumed hundreds of civilizations would soon be free, and humanity's policy of isolation would mean nothing to something that treated entire species as food. As they studied the warnings left by the dead civilizations, one of the security specialists made a discovery that changed everything. While examining what appeared to be a control panel, he accidentally activated something that sent a pulse of energy through the complex. The crystalline structures began to glow brighter, and suddenly the chamber was filled with new images. These showed Earth itself, somehow detected across the vast distances of space. The images focused on human cities, human technology, human faces. "What did you do?" Riley demanded. The security specialist backed away from the panel in horror. "I don't. No, I just touched it," and his words were cut off by a sound that seemed to come from everywhere at once. It was not quite a voice, not quite music, but something that spoke directly to their minds. The sound carried with it a sense of vast intelligence awakening from long sleep, of hunger that had been denied for too long, of attention turning toward something new and promising. "We need to leave," Zara said urgently. "Now, whatever we just activated, it's sending a signal somewhere." As they ran back toward their shuttle, the mountain complex around them began to change. Lights that had been dormant for decades were flickering to life, and the alien writing on the walls was rearranging itself into new patterns. Something ancient was waking up, and it had noticed that they were there. The shuttle launched into Zarian 7's sky just as massive energy beams began erupting from the mountain complex. The beams didn't target their ship, but instead reached out toward the stars themselves, sending a signal that would travel faster than light across the galaxy. Captain James Reeves called out from the pilot's seat, "I'm detecting energy pulses all across this system. Whatever we activated, it's waking up technology on every planet and moon." Riley watched through the viewport as alien devices that had been silent for 50 years began to activate across the Zarian system. Ancient satellite networks came online, orbital platforms began moving into new configurations, and deep space transmitters started broadcasting signals toward the galactic core. "We triggered some kind of alarm system," she realized. "The dead civilizations built this as a warning network, and we just told something that humanity exists." As the Prometheus fled the Zarian system at maximum speed, Riley knew that their mission had changed from exploration to something far more urgent. They had to reach Earth before whatever they had awakened could follow their trail home. But deep in her heart, she suspected they were already too late. Somewhere in the darkness between the stars, something vast and hungry had heard the signal. After 50 years of imprisonment, the Devourer knew that there was still prey to be found in the galaxy. The race back to Earth had begun, and humanity's greatest test was about to arrive. The Awakening stormed the journey back to Earth, took 3 weeks. But for Captain Riley Chen, every hour felt like an eternity. The Prometheus pushed its engines beyond safe limits, racing through hyperspace, while behind them, something ancient and terrible was awakening. The crew worked in shifts, monitoring long-range sensors for any sign of pursuit, but the darkness between stars remained ominously quiet. Dr. Marcus Torres had barely slept since leaving Zarian 7. He spent his time in the ship's laboratory, studying the data they had collected from the alien warning system. The crystalline records contained detailed information about the entity they had accidentally alerted, and what he learned filled him with dread. "Captain, you need to see this," Torres called out as Riley entered the lab. His face was gaunt with exhaustion, but his eyes burned with urgent purpose. "I've been analyzing the historical records from the dead civilizations. The Devourer isn't just a predator, it's something far worse." Riley settled into a chair beside him, grateful for a moment's rest from the constant tension on the bridge. "Explain it to me, Marcus. What exactly are we dealing with?" Torres activated a holographic display that showed the galaxy as it had been 50 years ago. Thousands of stars pulsed with different colors, representing various alien civilizations. "The entity we awakened doesn't just consume matter or energy like a conventional weapon. It feeds on consciousness itself, on the organized thoughts and memories that make each species unique." The display shifted, showing how the Devourer had spread across the galaxy like a plague. It starts by infiltrating the communication networks of a civilization. Radio waves, quantum transmissions, even primitive electromagnetic signals, the Devourer can ride along any form of information transfer. Once it establishes a foothold in a species' communication system, it begins the conversion process. Riley watched in horror as the simulation showed entire worlds going dark, their populations not dying but becoming something else entirely. How does it convert them? By overwhelming their individual consciousness with its own collective mind, Torres explained. Imagine billions of voices all speaking the same thoughts, drowning out your own inner voice until you can no longer remember who you were. The victims remain physically alive, but their personalities, their creativity, their individual dream soul of that gets absorbed into the Devourer's growing intelligence. Engineer Zara Okafor joined them in the lab, having overheard the conversation from the corridor. Her usually confident demeanor was shaken by weeks of studying the alien technology they had encountered. The worst part is that the conversion process is irreversible. Once someone becomes part of the collective, there's no way to separate them from it. They're lost forever. How did the previous civilizations fight something like that? Riley asked, though she dreaded the answer. Torres manipulated the display to show the final stages of the Galactic War. They tried everything: physical weapons, electromagnetic pulse attacks, even attempts to communicate with the entity and negotiate. Nothing worked because the Devourer doesn't want territory or resources. It wants minds, and it won't stop until every thinking being in the galaxy has been absorbed. The simulation showed the desperate final battle at the galactic core. Hundreds of species had pooled their technology and knowledge to create a dimensional prison that could contain the Devourer's consciousness. The cost had been enormous. Entire civilizations had exhausted themselves maintaining the containment field, dying to protect the rest of the galaxy. And now we've told it that Earth exists, Zara said grimly. Our signal gave it a target to focus on when it breaks free. Navigator James Reeves entered the lab, carrying a datapad with the latest sensor readings. His military background made him naturally pessimistic about their chances, but his analysis was always accurate. Captain, I've been running calculations on the energy patterns we detected at Zarian 7. If my projections are correct, the containment field around the Devourer will collapse within the next 2 weeks. Riley felt the weight of responsibility crushing down on her shoulders. Their exploration mission had accidentally doomed not just Earth, but potentially any other surviving civilizations in the galaxy. What's our ETA to Earth? 5 days at current speed, James replied. But we'll be running on empty fuel cells by the time we arrive. The engines weren't designed for this kind of sustained overload. Keep pushing them, Riley ordered. We need to warn Earth about what's coming. As the Prometheus continued its desperate flight toward home, the crew worked round the clock to prepare their report. The evidence they had gathered painted a terrifying picture of humanity's future. Earth's policy of isolation, which had protected them for 50 years, would be useless against an entity that could travel through any form of communication. Technology. Dr. Torres made another disturbing discovery while analyzing the alien records. Captain, there's something else you need to know. The Devourer doesn't just absorb random minds, it seeks out the most organized, disciplined civilizations first. Species with strong social hierarchies, unified governments, and standardized communication systems are the easiest targets. Why? Riley asked. Because conformity makes the conversion process easier, Torres explained. When everyone in a civilization thinks in similar patterns, follows the same social rules, and uses identical technology, the Devourer can override their consciousness more efficiently. It's like trying to corrupt a computer network if all the computers are running the same software. One virus can take down the entire system. Zara looked up from her engineering console with a thoughtful expression. But Earth isn't like that, is it? Human society is incredibly diverse. We have hundreds of different languages, thousands of distinct cultures, and people who disagree about everything from politics to what constitutes good food. Exactly, Torres said, his voice growing excited. Human civilization is chaotic, disorganized, and individualistic to a degree that most alien species would consider anarchic. We argue with each other constantly. We resist authority even when it's beneficial, and we maintain dozens of competing ideologies simultaneously. Riley began to see where this was leading. You think our chaos might protect us? It's possible, Torres replied. Every previous civilization that fell to the Devourer had achieved some form of unified global society. They had eliminated war, poverty, and social conflict by creating systems where everyone thought and acted in harmony. But humans have never achieved that kind of unity, and maybe that's our strength. The possibility gave Riley the first hope she had felt since leaving Zarian 7. Earth's greatest weakness, humanity's tendency toward disagreement and individualism, might be their salvation. When the Prometheus finally limped into Earth's solar system, their fuel cells completely drained, they found a world that had changed dramatically in their absence. News of their distress signal had reached Earth 2 days ahead of their arrival, and the planet was mobilizing for war. Admiral Sarah Harrison met them at Lunar Station, Earth's primary military facility built inside a hollowed-out asteroid near the Moon. Harrison was a veteran of the border conflicts that had occurred during humanity's early expansion, and her nonsense attitude had made her the natural choice to coordinate Earth's defense. Captain Chen, your report has caused quite a stir, Harrison said as Riley and her team were escorted to the station's briefing room. The World Council has been in emergency session for 48 hours, and everyone wants to know exactly what we're facing. Riley activated her portable display and showed Harrison the same evidence that had terrified her crew. The Admiral listened without comment as Torres explained the nature of the Devourer and the timeline for its escape from containment. How long before it reaches Earth? Harrison asked when the briefing was complete. Based on the energy patterns we observed, the entity will break free within days, Torres replied. After that, it could reach our solar system within weeks, depending on how it chooses to travel. Harrison stood and walked to the briefing room's window, which offered a view of Earth hanging in space like a blue marble. We've been preparing for this since your distress signal arrived. Every military unit on Earth has been activated, and we're coordinating with civilian authorities to implement emergency protocols. What kind of protocols? Riley asked. Isolation measures, Harrison explained. We're shutting down all long-range communication systems, severing our connection to any networks that might provide the entity with an entry point. Every computer system, every radio transmitter, every satellite uplink is being disconnected or destroyed. Zara looked alarmed. Admiral, that will cripple our civilization. Modern Earth depends on global communication networks for everything from transportation to food distribution. Better a crippled civilization than an absorbed one, Harrison replied grimly. We're also evacuating the major population centers and dispersing people into smaller, isolated communities. If the Devourer feeds on organized society, we're going to make ourselves as disorganized as possible. Over the following days, Earth transformed itself in ways that would have been unthinkable just weeks earlier. Cities that had housed millions of people were abandoned as the population scattered into rural areas. The global internet was systematically shut down, section by section, until only local networks remained. Governments dissolved themselves, handing authority to independent regional councils that deliberately refused to coordinate with each other. Riley watched the process from Lunar Station, amazed by humanity's ability to adapt to extreme circumstances. What other species would voluntarily destroy their own infrastructure in order to survive? What other civilization would choose chaos over the risk of unity? The answer came sooner than expected. Long-range sensors detected massive distortions in space near the galactic core, followed by energy signatures that matched the patterns they had observed at Zarian 7. The Devourer had broken free from its prison, and was expanding outward at an incredible rate. It's not traveling through normal space, reported Dr. Kim Nakamura, Lunar Station's chief physicist. The entity is moving through communication channels, following the paths of old radio transmissions and quantum signals. It's tracing the information trails left by dead civilizations. How long before it finds us? Harrison asked. 3 days, maybe 4, Nakamura replied. It's following the signal trail from Zarian 7, but it's also spreading in other directions. The entity is trying to locate any remaining civilizations in the galaxy. Riley realized that this was humanity's last chance to prepare. What about the defense plan? Are we ready? Harrison activated a display showing Earth's current status. The planet looked nothing like it had just weeks ago. Instead of the organized grid of lights that had marked major cities, the surface showed thousands of small, scattered settlements. Communication networks had been reduced to short-range systems that couldn't carry signals beyond local areas. "We're as ready as we can be," Harrison said, "but we're about to test a theory that could either save humanity or doom us all." The Devourer arrived on a Tuesday morning, Earth Standard Time. Long-range sensors detected its presence at the edge of the solar system. But the entity didn't announce itself with ships or armies. Instead, it began probing Earth's communication networks, searching for entry points that would allow it to begin the conversion process. But the networks it found were unlike anything the Devourer had encountered before. Instead of unified systems, carrying coordinated messages, Earth's remaining communication channels were filled with chaos. Thousands of different groups were broadcasting simultaneously in hundreds of languages, arguing about everything from military strategy to the best way to grow vegetables. The entity attempted to establish control by overwhelming the networks with its own consciousness, but human individuality proved impossible to suppress. Every time the Devourer tried to impose unity, someone would disagree, argue, or simply ignore the message entirely. The chaotic nature of human thought created so much interference that the entity couldn't establish a stable connection. Riley watched from Lunar Station as the battle for humanity's mind played out across Earth's remaining networks. The Devourer's attempts to create uniformity were met by an explosion of creativity and rebellion. Musicians composed songs specifically designed to be annoying and impossible to forget. Artists created images that hurt to look at but were impossible to ignore. Writers crafted stories that contradicted themselves and refused to make sense. "It's working," Torres reported from his monitoring station. The entity can't process the contradictions in human thought. Every time it tries to absorb someone's consciousness, it encounters ideas that don't fit with the collective mind. The Devourer, faced with a species that seemed to thrive on disagreement and chaos, tried a different approach. It began targeting Earth's military and government systems, attempting to take control of the planet's leadership. But Earth's leaders had anticipated this strategy and had deliberately fragmented their authority among thousands of independent groups. When the entity tried to control Earth's military, it found that there was no unified command structure to subvert. Regional militias operated independently, often using incompatible equipment and conflicting strategies. Government officials had been replaced by elected councils that spent more time arguing with each other than following orders. The final phase of the battle came when the Devourer attempted to physically manifest in Earth's solar system, creating ships and constructs from the absorbed consciousness of dead civilizations. But even this strategy failed against human unpredictability. Earth's defenders didn't use coordinated battle plans or standardized tactics. Instead, they improvised constantly, changing strategies mid-battle and deliberately creating confusion among their own forces. Fighter pilots ignored orders and attacked targets that caught their interest. Ground forces used equipment in ways it was never designed for. Commanders made decisions based on hunches and personal preferences rather than military doctrine. The Devourer, which had conquered hundreds of organized civilizations, found itself unable to predict or counter humanity's chaotic approach to warfare. Every time it adapted to one human strategy, the humans would change tactics for no apparent reason. Every time it thought it understood human psychology, someone would do something completely irrational that disrupted its calculations. After 3 days of futile attempts to absorb humanity, the Devourer made a decision that shocked everyone who witnessed it. The entity began to retreat, pulling its consciousness back from Earth's systems and withdrawing from the solar system. Entirely, it's leaving, Harrison reported in amazement. The entity is actually retreating. Riley couldn't believe what she was seeing. Why would it give up? It's conquered entire galactic civilizations. Torres had been studying the patterns of the Devourer's withdrawal. I think it's overwhelmed. The entity is designed to absorb organized consciousness. But human thought is so chaotic and contradictory that we're actually causing it pain. We're like a virus that its immune system can't process. As the Devourer fled Earth's solar system, it sent out a final communication that was picked up by Lunar Station's sensors. The message was brief but chilling, a warning broadcast to any other manifestations of the entity elsewhere in the galaxy, marking Earth as a dangerous anomaly to be avoided at all costs. Humanity had won not through superior technology or military might, but by being themselves. Their individuality, their tendency to argue and disagree, their chaotic and unpredictable nature, the traits that other species had considered weaknesses, had become their greatest strength. Riley stood at the observation deck of Lunar Station, watching Earth slowly return to normal as communication networks were restored and cities began to repopulate. The planet looked the same as it had before the crisis, but she knew that humanity had been forever changed by the experience. They were no longer an isolated species, hiding from a dangerous galaxy. They were the species that had faced the greatest threat in galactic history and won through the simple act of being human. The enemy that had consumed countless civilizations had fled from Earth, defeated not by unity but by humanity's glorious, chaotic diversity. The stars no longer looked empty to Riley. They looked like a galaxy full of possibilities, waiting for a species brave enough and crazy enough to explore them. And humanity, with all their flaws and contradictions, was exactly that kind of species. Asterisk.